All right. It's Bartley. Let's talk business. Let's talk business, y'all. All right. So this is very interesting. Um, I'm gonna wait a little bit. There's still a little delay when LinkedIn comes in, and I have not done countdowns yet. I refuse to do countdowns just yet. I don't know why, and I'm pretty sure StreamYard has a really simple one, and I could just like throw that up there. I don't know why, but it's okay. I'm gonna I'm gonna humble myself at some point and just do it. Um, I came across a post earlier today by Myron Golden, and he was breaking down the bidirectional growth of trees and how trees grow up and they also grow down, and they interestingly enough look very similar. The root system looks very similar to what he called the fruit system. And he's so right. The branches that we have above ground, very similar to the roots or the branches that are underneath. All right. What I want us to do is I want us to take a look at what he talked about. I want to break down just a little bit how that also can apply to making high impact decisions. One of the reasons why is because it's easier to have an understanding of a particular topic, or just uh, in this case in business, when there is an analogy that you can relate to, like trees. We've all, for those of us that have been gifted with the ability of sight, have seen a tree. And if you haven't seen a tree, hopefully maybe you have felt a tree, and or at least had a tree been described to you so that you know what a tree um, would look like. So this is very interesting because when you break this down, we've got, and we're going to just kind of break it down. So remember, he talked about the root and the fruit, and then we're going to go a little bit further. But with the root system, we're looking at the emphasis of how roots provide a few things. They provide stability, they provide resources, they provide a strong foundation. And when it comes to paralleling that to business, it's kind of like the business's core when it comes to their values, their mission, their infrastructure. And these would be considered the unseen drivers of success. So just like roots absorb water and they absorb nutrients, a well-grounded company, get this, y'all, a well-grounded company, in the same sense, they absorb market insights, they absorb customer feedback, they absorb innovative ideas, right? Now, for those of you that are just joining, what we're doing is we are pulling or talking about the root and fruit system of a tree, and we're paralleling it to business, because trees actually grow up and they also grow down. And so we're taking a look at how it parallels to business, and then what it looks like to make high impact decisions, because that's one of the things that we're talking about this year, making high impact decisions, not just in business, but also in life. And so these roots in a business, they absorb insights from the market, customer feedback, innovative ideas, just like the roots of a tree. They're picking up, they're soaking in water, they're soaking in nutrients. Now, when it comes, and that's the root system, right? That's underneath. As a matter of fact, one of the things that he broke down in his post was that the seed, when it is planted, it grows down first and then it grows up. So it's gravitropic, growing towards gravity downward, and then it's phototropic, growing towards the sun, which is very cool. And so when we talk about now the fruit system, which is above ground, we're looking at the outward expression of what a tree is, right? We're looking at its leaves, we're looking at its branches, we're looking at its fruit. And this all depends on the health of the roots. So if the roots aren't healthy, the leaves aren't going to be healthy. The branches won't be healthy. The fruit won't be healthy, right? And so your marketing campaigns, your product launches, your brand reputation are really, in essence, the fruit. And they only flourish if your foundational systems are healthy. So if you don't have a healthy mission, if you don't have healthy core values, if you don't have a healthy infrastructure, no matter how much branding you do, y'all, no matter how much marketing you do, the business will collapse because at the core, there's something that needs to be fixed. All right. So this is the root and the fruit system, right? This is the foundation, and then this is the outcome of what happens when the foundation is either healthy or unhealthy. So this also makes it a little bit more difficult, makes it a little bit more challenging if you are running a business and there are decisions that have to be made, but because the root might not be as firm as it used to be, it makes it more difficult to make particular decisions, and vice versa. If there are difficult decisions to be made, but the root and we're talking about the root when we're talking about the core values, the mission, the infrastructure. If we're solid, if the roots is solid, then even though the decisions might be difficult, you can almost in a sense live with those decisions, right? Because you know that you're doing it based on the values of the business, right? But a little bit about this bi-directional growth, right, of the tree, because tree grows once again in two directions, and they do it simultaneously ish. Like, you know, we don't really see it growing, breaking out of the ground just yet, but there's some growth that's happening. We just can't see it breaking through. A large part of it, though, has to go downward first before it breaks out upward toward the sky. And the significance of this is what I would consider this duality, because it illustrates how business must prioritize both internal stability, right, that root growth, but it also needs to prioritize the external expansion. So we're talking the branches that look like visibility, market presence, and those things. Both need to happen. For those of you that have been a part of startup culture, you know what that is, right? As you're quickly building the infrastructure and making sure, it's like you're building as you're going along, making sure that things are solid. You're also having to do pitches. You're also having to, make sure that the product market fit is aligned, not perfectly, but there has to be market validation so that you can actually have a product or service that's gonna actually have my maybe seed funding, or just take off in revenue, because you have a base of customers that are just chomping at the bit waiting for that product, right? And so what you should do, and this is something that's important here with this bi-directional growth, is just some encouragement here, that as a leader, what you should do is you should just allocate your resources wisely, right? You should balance internal development, so that's that company culture, that's the processes that are going on within the business, and balance that with outward facing initiatives. Those could be anything like sales, it could be partnerships. All right, these are the things that need to be balanced. Why? Because if you only focus on the external appearance, like a tree with shallow roots, then your business might topple over when a storm comes. Okay. And so you want to make sure that you have a strong foundation, so that when hard times do come, what do hard times look like? Pandemic, right? A recession. Um, the great, at one point, the great resignation, which then turned into the great termination, which I now call next the great documentation. It's a whole different generation of people now that, when they're getting fired or laid off, like they're recording the whole thing. It's wild. Like, I don't understand how people can do that and then think that they're going to get a job once they actually post on social their process. That crazy to me, but that's the new gen, y'all. New gen, they be on some stuff. All right, so that's what you want to make sure, though, when you're building, and when you're thinking about the decisions that have to be made. Before any of that, the business has to be solid. Right? I mean, of course, decisions are going to be made regardless, but bi-directional growth, all right, making sure that the infrastructure is solid, company culture, the processes are in place, while you're still doing marketing, while you're still doing sales, while you're still initiating partnerships with other businesses. Now, this idea of adapting to forces is very interesting. I want to take some time just to talk a little bit about when he was mentioning phototropic and gravitropic or phototropism, gravitropism. And so with phototropism or phototropism, what trees do is they naturally grow towards light sources. I'm actually going to look up. Yeah, that O is a long O, so it's phototropism. And what happens is in business, what you always want to do is you always want to seek out new opportunities, which yes is what we would probably consider the light, right? Staying competitive, adapting strategies. Remember, we looked at Spotify yesterday and how Spotify found ways to keep a competitive edge, competitive advantage by doing a few things. One of the first things that they did was making sure that their user experience and discoverability of music was on point. Then they also invested a lot of capital into podcasts, right? So they were making sure that they were looking at these opportunities, mining these opportunities, and then adapting the strategies, moving towards growth, remaining nimble in changing markets. It's hard for large companies. They're like a big ship, right? When it's time to turn the ship, the bigger the ship, the longer it takes to turn. And so it's almost as if you have to have some of these departments within a larger company that are more agile to come up with ideas and to move things, and to kind of pilot some new projects so that you're not waiting for the entire company to make those decisions. By the time that happens, competition has already taken off with the idea that you might have already thought about months ago, but it took you a long time. It took you so long to just implement the ideas, to test it out, and to keep moving. All right. So phototropism, you want to make sure that you are focusing on the new opportunities. Gravitropism. Now I feel so self-conscious because I definitely was like tropism in the beginning of the stream, but that's all right. We'll rock with it. The tree's roots respond to gravity, right? So I was telling you that it's growing downward. And so it's doing so for the anchoring and from a tree's perspective and from a business perspective, resource acquisition. So from a business perspective, though, just like roots push downward, what we want to make sure is that the companies also must go deep as well into a few things, into research, into data analytics, market fundamentals. They need to do these things in order to ground strategic decisions. Because if you don't do so, remember just what we talked about with the CEO of Spotify yesterday, there are specific things that he the strategies that he pioneered in order to make sure that Spotify, if not yet, will become like the Google of the audio industry. Like that's the goal that they're striving for, right? But that's not easy. That doesn't come easy, right? And so, phototropic opportunities, gravitropic. Want to make sure that you're focusing on the research. You're making sure that you're focusing on data analytics. It's really got to be evidence-based. You got to make sure that you understand the market. It's not a gut feeling. You can do that gut feeling in the phototropic part, right? When you are looking for opportunities, like, I think this might make sense. And you can do that. You can kind of follow your gut with some of those things because of the deep research and understanding that you've done with your market, with your customers. Okay. Now, here's the thing, though. What happens is there is going to be levels of resistance when growth occurs. I mean, you know this. For any of you that, have experienced growing pains when you were younger, as your bones started to stretch and crack and, and elongate, or if you were, ever worked out and you understand that by tearing those micro tears in the tissue, which I feel so sore, just like, oh my goodness, I can't walk. Today was leg day. Well, today was my entire body, but leg day, for some reason, when we do lunges on Mondays, it is the death of me, y'all. It's just one of those things, but I'm getting better. Now I actually can do lunges with those 30-pound bars, a little shorter barbells on my shoulder, and then kind of doing the lunges. So we're making progress. At one point, it's so crazy. At one point, my trainer was like, I remember a few months back, you couldn't even do your own body weight. I said, get out of here. Sometimes you don't remember. Sometimes you don't remember the progress that you've had. He's like, I remember you were dying just from doing that. And now you got the bar with some weights on top. Sometimes if he's feeling like pushing my limits. Um, so there's going to be resistance, right? And you need to have the power to break through. So the resistance below ground is very interesting because the tree, they face the densest resistance when they're pushing, when the roots are pushing through heavy soil and of course the rocks and everything that's underneath. And so man, when you think about startups and how they face the most friction at the beginning, I mean, this is so true, you know, because they're getting their foot off the, not their foot, but they're getting the business right off the ground. And so, of course, it's going to face the most amount of friction in the very beginning. Why wouldn't it? That's just how, that's just how it works, But here's the thing: the funding challenges that they have, the limited brand recognition, nobody knows who you are, right? The resource constraints, all of that stuff piles on, and you have to break through that. You have to get your name out there. You have to be known. You have to get known. Now, that's not as important as getting your product or your service in the hands of people, and then hopefully word of mouth, and then marketing will do that. But the biggest one is funding, money. You need the money, right? The resource. Do we have the band? Do we have the people? It actually makes this thing happen, right? But once you're above ground, just like a tree, like after a tree, the shoots they break the surface. It primarily contends with gravity and weather, right? There's still resistance, right? And the nature of the challenges shift, but it never disappears. It's just a little bit easier than it is being in a startup, but you have a whole nother set of problems now. You're above ground, you got to face stormy weather. You're above ground, you got to face, wind and people, perhaps depending on where you're growing, potentially trampling on the shoots that are just coming out and trying to grow. Okay. So when your product or your service gains traction, your challenges will inevitably evolve. I'll say that again. When your product or your service gains traction, your challenges will inevitably evolve. This also happens with you as an individual. When you as a person, when you start to gain traction, think about it. Has anybody tried running when it started to rain, and you start running in the rain and you just realize, wait a minute, I'm going to get wet regardless. Why am I running and having the wind hit me harder? When traction picks up, this physics, there are other elements, right? Wind resistance, things that also will pick up as well. It's just nature. And so once again, the nature of your challenges shift, but they never disappear. So you're going to manage, for instance, if it's a business, you're going to manage scaling. You're going to have to manage competition. You're going to have to manage sustaining the growth. Like, oh man, we're growing faster than we thought. Versus, man, we're surviving, and we just need to hold on to what we have. And then you get a point where you're like, oh man, we're too big. I mean, I don't know if too big is a problem, but man, we're too. Now we need to either expand by reaching out to, expanding the scaling the customer base, or you got to contract. You got to start culling, the company to fit what's working right now. And then so that you can survive. And I'm using the word survive now, right? To live another day. It's like another level of survival. It's not the survival of existence. It's now the survival of sustainability. So this is where, you manage these things. And the key here is recognizing that each stage has its form of resistance, just like you as an individual. Each stage that you're on has a level of resistance. The higher you go, I don't want to say the harder it gets, but the more evolved the challenges will get, right? The more impactful it gets. And sometimes maybe it is sometimes it's just the harder that it gets, right? So when we look at from just a business perspective, what it means to make high impact decisions. We have what we would consider like the root level. Root level insights drive your external success. Okay, you've got these high impact decisions that should come from a blend of a solid internal uh, solid internal data. Like you just need to have the numbers. You need to have cultural alignment. You need to have innovative strategy. Like these things are so important. You need to have your core values. You need to have the mission. What are we doing day in and day out to reach the vision? I don't even think I hit on vision, but you need to have those things in order for there to be a sustainable root system. But you also need to remember, you need to balance both growth directions. You need to nurture your internal operations, right? Just like the roots when they deepen. But you also need to reach perhaps new markets if you're not digging deeper into that market and expanding your customer base, or you might need to diversify products, right? Just like growing branches on a tree. With this root level kind of development and balancing the growth that's up and balancing the growth that's down, like deepening the roots, your internal ops, and your, let's say, your market expansion, for example, you then need to adapt to the environmental forces because you have to stay vigilant to the forces that are going on. Whether your customer demands the light, right? This is the now they're not per se demanding the light, but the customer demands are the light, if that makes sense, right? And so whether there are demands that are in above the ground, right, or whether there are maybe perhaps economic headwinds, which could be considered the gravity. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you're agile to keep your growth sustainable, because it's going to happen. Things will happen. All right. I mean, we know this. 4 years ago, we had no idea. We had no idea what was going to hit us. Maybe almost 5 years ago now, right? On a global level, and the businesses that, I mean, even some businesses that were sustainable, it was just difficult, because if it was rooted, no pun intended here, but if it was rooted in employees having to be in the office, it wasn't going to survive, right? This is why software and tech like Zoom became super popular. Even Figma as well, right? Because collaboration started to be a huge, online collaboration became even more important than ever before. And then now some of those things have just kind of stuck with us. Like, who could have really won in that era too, if they really did it right. I know eventually Microsoft Teams kind of got on board, but man, like if Skype did what they were supposed to do, Skype could have really taken off. I might go over the case study that I did a few years back, where at one point eBay, they did an acquisition for Skype because they wanted to have like a messaging system on the eBay platform. And they didn't really listen to or pay attention to their users, because users are not trying to have conversations when they're bartering or selling on eBay. They're not. I don't know why I said bartering. They're not trying to have a full conversation. I don't know if you've ever used eBay before, but it is not about like, hey, how's it going? And so, long story short, that acquisition did not last. Like it was bad. It was bad. But anyway, you want to make sure that you are able to withstand customer demands, which would be above ground, so to speak, and then economic headwinds, which those would be more so what we would consider like beneath the ground challenges. All right, gets down to the roots, and just expecting that resistance is going to happen, y'all. Resistance is going to happen. Not only expect it, but plan for it. Anticipate that each growth stage brings new forms of resistance. So you want to make sure that you design strategies that address both early stage challenges and mature stage challenges. You know what that means, right? That means that even from like a C-level perspective, you should You should have a, perhaps, I don't know, and it might be out there, a black book, maybe a blueprint of like, if this happens, this is what we'll do. If this happens, this is what we'll do. Kind of reminds me of the series on Apple TV called Silo. They have um, this set of rules called the Pact. It's in this, bound in this book. But I think that there's another book that only a select few have access to, that talk about what's to happen, like if a rebellion occurs, and what needs, what they would need to do in order to quell the rebellion. Um, I'm almost certain, I'm not sea level yet, but I'm almost certain that at that level, you've seen some things, you've heard some things, you've experienced some things. And so, if not just having those things internal, you probably have like an if this, then that type of, you know, maybe it's not a book per se, but something that you can go to look at to figure out. Now, if you don't have that, you probably have some people. Probably have some people that are that for you, right? You've hired a team, or the board of advisors, whatever it is, around the company when it gets to that level, especially, so that you can discuss those ideas. And so, in a sense, that black book of contingencies, so to speak, decisions that need to be made, is not codified as much as it is humanified. We're going to go with that. You've got people around it as opposed to rules. A great company has both. A great company not only has people, but it also has the I don't know, the rules. I know that sounds very strict to say, but the laws in place so that some of those things won't even happen. And if they do happen, the company would know what to do, or at least what particular risk that they need to take. But once again, not at the level yet. But when I do get there, I'll let y'all know. I'll let y'all know how it works out and what they be doing. All right. So a few things that you want to do. What you want to do is to understand that a well-known company that starts small had to build a robust foundation. They had to build those internal processes. They had to develop and to champion values first. And then only later they scaled up to an international brand because they had the root. They had the root taken care of while also, building, the fruit. But at the same time, they really spent a lot of time focusing on what was unseen. That would have probably included adapting to shifting markets. I mean, think about your life personally. I mean, we're almost a week into January. What has shifted? What has shifted already for you that you did not expect? What has started happening that you're just like, whoa, 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 whoa. I need to make some changes. I had some goals set up, but the week hasn't even started, and there's some things that I need to adjust, right? You had to overcome some early resistance, just like what businesses had to do. Continued investing in your root system. Some of you working out. I say workout because you know what? Not only is it because it's part of my journey, but it's also the beginning of the year. That's what most people, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people, they focus on, either losing weight or just becoming more fit. But some of you, this is not your first rodeo. You did it last year. And so what you need to do is continue to invest in that root system of physical fitness, personal health, mental health, right? And so just kind of keep those things in mind. Right. What I would want you to do, or what I would strongly suggest, is that you audit your own root system by asking a few things. I mean, one of the things that you can ask is, what are my core strengths? What are my core values? What data insights anchor me? Now, of course, this is important for business, but let's make it more personal. What anchors me? What triggers me? What do I need to address in order for me, perhaps some obstacles, in order for me to get to the next level of whatever the goal is that I have set out for myself? And once you start auditing your root system, Then you should start examining your fruit system. Which products, this is business, right? Which brands, which partnerships do I need to nurture, or does the company need to nurture more effectively? For you personally, you can ask yourself, which people, which books, like resources, do I need to nurture so that I can be my best self in 2025? But whatever you do, everyone, I stress the importance of a steady but purposeful growth in both directions so that your business or your personal life doesn't become lopsided. The same thing happens with making high impact decisions. You don't want your decisions to be lopsided because you've only focused on one side of the tree, so to speak. Okay. So a tree's resilience comes from its balanced approach to growth. It's always pushing deeper and it's always reaching higher. It's this bi-directional evolution that's happening here in a business that invests in its foundations, the root, just as much as its outward expression. Its brand and the marketing and the sales, which is the fruit, the above ground, will make bold, high impact decisions that lead to sustainable success. So what you want to do is you just want to make sure that you are focusing on not just one area. That's not how life works. Y'all, I wish I could tell you that's how life works, y'all, but that's not how life works. There are lots of things that are happening at the same time. Gravitropic growth is happening. Phototropic growth is happening. You have to nurture both. And I know it might seem overwhelming. I could give you a great example of what overwhelming can feel like. I think I mentioned to you guys a couple of days ago that my today is the first day of taking my nutritional assessment to another level. What does that mean? So my coach, he was like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I use, this app kind of seems like MyFitnessPal. He's like, no, it's better. It's more detailed. And he's so right. It's got me, unless MyFitnessPal has changed, but RP, what is this called? It's called RP. Let me see. RP diet. Like I have to put in my meals, my times for my meals. I have to put in when I sleep. It calculates my meal times based on my sleep time, my wake up time. It calculates, now of course we're using macros. So it's calculating the macros, which is protein, fat, carbohydrates. Those are macros. I scan everything now. They got their own list, but I scan everything that I eat. Now, I've done this before. Remember, some of us as high achievers, we've done these things before, but sometimes it's okay. Do it again. So I'm doing it now, again, scanning everything that I'm eating. I just bought a scale to start weighing my food. Listen, y'all, I've never had a scale before, but now I'm realizing how important it is because we have a very specific goal in mind. This dude is shredding me down even more so that when it's time to build, he's like, we need you to build on a solid foundation. We need to build on the roots that we're growing. I'm already a hard gainer, which means that it takes me a lot of effort to gain weight. So I felt really good when at one point I hit like 165. When I was with him, he got me from 165 to 150. 155, y'all. The crazy part is people are like, yo, man, you've been working out. So even though I've lost weight, it's really the visceral fat, but the muscle is still intact. This dude, I'm just sharing it all my personal life now. This dude is dropping me down to 145 now. And I'm just like, what is you doing? You about to have me look like a skinny. Now, here's the thing. He's like, once we can get you there, root system. Remember, Tree grows down and it grows up. And once we can get you there and we got you shredded, we're going to build you back up. We're going to build you back up, my boy. And when you get built up, you now will have a strong, now remember, you will have a strong foundation. The foundation for me, of course, as we talked about from business, is core values, mission, all of that, right? Internal structure. My internal structure is making sure that I have a very, very low percentage of body fat. Making sure that, of course, my strength as we're continuing to work out, the endurance is there, but really focusing on the tonality of my muscles, my health, like the actual, I should say my health, all of that is health, but the nutrients, the diet itself, the healthy diet, hydration. One of the biggest things that I have to do this year, sleep. Didn't get much quality sleep in 2024. I got enough, but I can tell the difference now. And as things start to increase, I realize that I also need to, when I say things increasing, like with the intensity of working out increases and just work in general, just everything. I need to sleep more. And so that's part of the root system. So that the fruit system can be, you walking out and, you look good and feeling good, and once you do those things, you can validate, how you look. I think physical fitness is the easiest way to validate. Oh yeah, that person has definitely been working internally because they can see it externally, but not everything works like that in life. Some things you can't tell right away until you start engaging with it or them and you realize, wow, oh, you did the work. Somebody with like a high emotional intelligence, or the ability to communicate effectively. These are things that you can't necessarily tell until you do engage a person, right? But then there are other things in life that you can look at and you say, they put the work in. It's a mixture, right? That's the fruit side. And looking at the fruit, you can assume like, oh yeah, they were working. And what it also does is it inspires people, inspires them to ask the question, wait, what did you do in order to blah, dot, dot, whatever that is. And then it gives you the opportunity to share with them how it is that you got to where you are, right? Yeah, so that's it. That's it. Work on the root and work on the fruit. For those of you that might have just been coming in, I got that from Myron Golden, one of the posts that he mentioned. It was just a quick post, and I was like, ooh, I need to just kind of dive in a little bit deeper. So I just kind of looked at it and just kind of wrote some notes on what that looks like and how we can actually apply this to both business and personal life. So, all right. Now, if there's anybody that's out there, I think I got maybe one person, two, looks like. Drop a comment. Let me know that you're alive and breathing, what you caught, something that you might have thought you missed and you need me to repeat out. Listen, we are on no time length or time limitations here, except for maybe LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a little interesting. All right. So what I'll do is, we are LinkedIn people, if you see this after it's live, I hope that this is something that you can take into the new week. Today was the first day of the work week. And so hopefully if you do catch this, it'll encourage you to work on the root and also on the fruit. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna hop off LinkedIn. Now, if there's anybody else though, that has any questions or any suggestions, talk to me. I'm here, I'm listening, and I'm looking out for you. All right. I'll take a few moments just to hang around just in case. I know you're out there. I know you're watching. StreamYard is telling me, unless StreamYard might be inflating some numbers. I don't know. That could be a thing too. But if it's not, I can see you by the numericals. All right, let me do something here. I'm gonna actually take a look because perhaps, perhaps. Yeah, just it looks like just says that I've got a person. I think that's actually here. Um, so yeah, holla at me. Holla at me. Talk to me. If not, it's all good. One of the things that I'm learning is I'm kind of also looking at the creator camp. And Twitch is just the the nuances of what it takes to have a successful stream, especially if you're not a gamer, right? Because there are people who are like popular on other platforms that they'll come on Twitch and it's not as it's not as popular. One of the things that I noticed though, and I think there's a particular I think their name was Electrical Longboard, I think, that I hopped on my first stream, I think my first or second stream, and mentioned this idea called rating, which until I looked it up, I mean they broke it down to me, but until I looked it up, I had no idea. It just sounded like it was like breaking terms and guidelines and just wasn't how Twitch works. But that's how Twitch works. Rating and some other things to collab so that it also increases your audience, which is pretty dope. So there's some things. There's some things that I'm gonna have to start doing, to make sure that I increase my visibility. Right. I think another thing too is just making sure that my search results are also optimized by putting in the right like categories and tags and stuff like that. Um, yeah, let's see here. Trees. Okay. Business strategy, CEO, trees. Oh, decisions. That's what I need to add. Um, decisions. Growth. That also be growth mindset. Okay. All right. All right, y'all. I'm gonna hop off YouTube. Bye, YouTube.